Welcome. In this video, we will guide you through the disassembly and reassembly of Viking pumps 8124A, 8123A, and 8127A series mag drive internal gear pumps. Before you begin, please consult the appropriate technical service manual for safety information. A copy of the latest revision can be found on our website at vikingpump.com. Warning: rare earth magnets, like those used in the magnetic drive coupling, have extremely strong magnetic fields and are capable of changing the performance of or damaging items such as pacemakers, metal implants, watches, computers, cellular or mobile devices, and credit cards. The following tools are required: a soft-headed hammer, hook nose spanner wrench, box end wrenches, SAE Allen wrenches, O-ring pick, flathead screwdriver, 2-pin spanner wrench, lock nut tool, ruler, and 2 all-thread rods. A complete listing of tools can be found in the service manual. Keep the pump and work area as clean as possible. When working with rare earth magnets, it's important to work on a non-magnetic surface and to keep metal tools away from the magnets. First, drain the pump of any residual liquid by turning the shaft. Mark the pump head and casing to ensure proper reassembly later. It is not necessary to remove the relief valve from the pump casing, but if removing the relief valve, take note of the orientation to ensure the valve is properly oriented when reinstalled. Marking the valve and the pump can help ensure this. To begin, separate the pump from the bracket. Remove the 4 socket head cap screws that secure the pump to the bracket. A hoist or blocking of the pump can help support the pump through this process. Use the provided jack screws in the bracket to separate the inner magnet from the outer magnet. 2 6 to 8 inch lengths of all-thread rod placed into the diagonal cap screw locations in the bracket help to keep the assemblies properly aligned throughout this process. It's important not to place your fingers in the gap between the bracket and pump assembly, as this is a potential pinch point. Once separated, it's important to keep a large space between the outer magnet and inner magnet, and to keep metal tools and electronics away from each. To disassemble the pump end, remove the socket head cap screws which hold the canister to the adapter plate. Grip the canister firmly and rotate back and forth to break it free of the adapter plate. Pull the canister off, but be aware that it will likely contain liquid which will drain out. Clean and inspect the canister and bushing. Inspect the O-ring. Do not remove the canister O-ring unless it's scratched or otherwise damaged, especially if it's PTFE. If replacement is necessary, please follow the instruction tips in the technical service manual. Using an Allen wrench, loosen the lock nut set screw and remove the lock nut. Remove the inner magnet, making sure to keep it away from the pump and metal tools. Place it with the thrust washer pin facing up so as not to bend or otherwise damage the pin. Remove the shaft key. Remove the inner thrust washer. To inspect the head and idler pin assembly, remove the head bolts and remove the head, shims, and O-ring from the pump. Tilt the head back to prevent the idler gear from falling off the idler pin. Remove the idler gear and bushing assembly from the idler pin and inspect the idler gear, bushing, pin, and head. The bushing can be removed using a press if replacement is needed. Detailed instructions on this process are included in the service manual. Discard the old O-ring. Inspect the shims. If shims have become bent or otherwise damaged, they will need to be replaced to ensure the pump clearances are correct when reassembled. Remove the rotor from the pump casing and the inner thrust washer. Inspect the thrust washers and adapter plate bushing. Inspect the casing and rotor. If replacing the adapter plate O-ring, remove the bolts that hold the casing to the adapter plate to access. You may now reassemble the pump end. If the casing was removed from the adapter plate, make sure that it is installed with a new O-ring. Confirm that the casing groove aligns with the adapter plate groove and bolt the two together using the provided cap screws. Place one thrust washer onto the rotor shaft, making sure to align the pin with the hole on the thrust washer. Using a compatible lubricant, lubricate the bushing and shaft and insert the rotor shaft into the adapter plate bushing. Reinstall the shims onto the pump head. If the shims have become damaged, replace them and confirm the end clearance as detailed in the service manual and per your pump serial number. Lubricate and install the O-ring. Place the idler gear on the idler pin. Bolt the head to the casing. Again, if the shims have been replaced, confirm the proper end clearance as detailed in the service manual and per your pump's serial number. Slide the second thrust washer onto the shaft with the drive hole facing out. Install the key on the shaft. Slide the inner magnet onto the shaft with the pin side toward the pump. Align the keyway with the shaft key and the thrust washer hole with the pin on the magnet. Install the split lock nut, but do not tighten at this time. To ensure proper clearances for the thrust washers, insert 2 feeler gauges, one on each side of the shaft between the thrust washer and the adapter plate bushing. These should be 2/1000ths of an inch for these pump sizes, but 1/1000th of an inch for H and HL sizes. Tighten the lock nut until the feeler gauges are snug, but can still be removed. Tighten the lock nut set screw. Slide out the feeler gauges. If they cannot be removed or easily fall out, repeat this process. Using a compatible lubricant, lubricate the canister bushing. Rotate the shaft to make sure the magnet hasn't picked up any foreign materials. Install the canister. There are 9 holes in the flange of the canister, 8 that are evenly spaced for the bolts, and a 9th that aligns with an anti-rotation pin in the adapter plate. Align this hole with the pin and press on the canister. A soft hammer can be used to tap it all the way on against the adapter plate. Install the 8 canister cap screws. Next, visually inspect the outer magnets from the end of the bracket. If removal is necessary, bend up the tang on the lock washer and remove the lock nut and lock washer. To do so, you'll need to secure the bracket to your workbench and lock the shaft from turning. This can be done using a second spanner wrench on the keyway of the pump. Slide the outer magnet assembly out of the bracket. The inner race of the inner thrust bearing may also slide out. This video does not show bearing replacement. For bearing and lip seal replacement procedures, please consult the technical service manual. Screw the end cap into the bracket until it contacts. Do not over-tighten. Slide the inner roller bearing onto the shaft, followed by the inner bearing spacer. Slide the outer magnet into the bracket. Slide the outer roller bearing onto the shaft, followed by the outer bearing spacer, which should fit within the lip seal. The tapered side is installed toward the lip seal. Install a new lock washer, aligning the inner tang with the slot on the shaft, and install a new lock nut. Tighten the lock nut between 50 and 70 foot-pounds and bend a tang of the lock washer that best aligns with a lock nut slot. At this point, the outer magnet should be installed, but very loosely in the bracket. Tapered roller bearings require preload to operate properly. To do this, unscrew the end cap by hand until there is considerable drag on the bearings. Mark the end cap in bracket. Then screw the cap clockwise 5/16 of an inch or 8 mm radially from that mark. This will allow the bearings to turn freely but keep the outer magnet on center. Tighten the end cap set screws. Grease the bracket using the bracket grease fitting while turning the shaft by hand to distribute the grease. Keep greasing until a small amount of grease exits the outer lip seal. Now, it's time to reinstall the pump and inner magnet to the bracket and outer magnet. Using the same jack bolts and thread rods as before, align the pump with the bracket. These will keep the pump and bracket in alignment and slowly put these components together. Support the pump with blocks or a hoist to keep these parts in good alignment. Alternating back and forth, slowly remove the jack bolts. As before, keep your hands out of the area between the adapter plate and the bracket, as this is a potential pinch point. Once the pump is against the bracket and the jack bolts are no longer in contact with the adapter plate, insert the 4 adapter plate cap screws and tighten to secure the pump to the bracket. Your Viking pump 8124A, 8123A, or 8127A series mag drive internal gear pump is fully repaired and ready to be put back into service. For more information, please visit our website at vikingpump.com.